Hello friends, I'm Brian, and this is Gizmo Board Games. Today, I'm reviewing Clans of Caledonia by Karma Games, designed by Juma Aljuju. I think I'm close at least on that one. So Clans of Caledonia is an economic game. It's a pretty heavy Euro game with a lot going on as you're placing pieces on the board and using them to generate resources that you're going to use to drive the economy, buying and selling, taking contracts, and then turning in resources to get those contracts completed to earn points. You're playing through 5 rounds, and whoever has the best economy, best turn of events, however you want to call it, at the end of the game, the most points wins. Let's go ahead and go to the overview, and I can explain a little bit of how to play, go through what your actions are, and then give my final thoughts in Gizmo format. All right, here we are. As usual, I have the board set up for a 2-player game. In a 2-player game, on the map, you are going to ignore the outer zone of hexes, so everything's going to be from the second row in, up and down. I've already placed a couple of starting woodsmen and miners for each of the 2 players. As you can see on the edge of the board, there are some ports that can be used, and I'll cover all that. Hopefully I don't forget it as we go along. Here you see the economy track with everything at its starting price to buy and or sell. And over here you got the contracts board with round bonuses that I assure you can't really see well, and then the points trackers. This will work as the scoring track as well. And once you go around, it goes to 30, but you can go around it multiple times. There's a little points tracker to count when you've done 30 and 60, etc. times around the board. We've got our own individual player boards set up. I bumped mine a little bit, but on them you see sheep, cows, cheese, bread, wheat, whiskey, and more miners or lumberjacks for either player. We've each chosen a starting clan and starting set of resources, as indicated by these 2 things. And each clan has its asynchronous abilities, and you want to learn how to utilize each clan to the best potential. And there's little hints for each one in the rule book to help you out, to help you get started. We've each got a player aid here. We've got some port markers. You can use each port exactly once. So if you use a port, you'll throw your color marker on it to indicate that you've used that port. We've got 2 of our little merchant guys already free. We can purchase more. You've got a water track that indicates how far you can go through the rivers and the lakes to set up new colonies, because right now, as we place new things on the board, they do have to be within the water track of something that's already on the board. And right now we each start with only a river crossing. So right now I couldn't cross the lake at all, any distance. Same with my opponent. But we could place, over the river next to one of our. And that'll matter for determining numbers of villages or whatever they call it. I don't remember specifically, but number of towns, whatever. As they're separated by water, they count as a separate entity. But then you want to see how many of those separate entities you have for final scoring purposes, because the more of those separate entities you have using your shipping bonuses, etc., will earn you more and more points. The more separate units you can get connected through waterways is a big deal. We've also got some starting resources, some starting money, minus what we had to use to get our starting players onto the board. And this looks like a lot of money. It will go quickly, and then you'll spend the whole game wondering how the heck you can get more of it, because that is the basis of the game, is building the economy. So how does it play out? On your turn, you're going to take 1 of 8 actions. So that's quite a bit of options, but it all comes down to, do I want to put things on the board? Do I want to get things from the economy? Or do I want to, pick up and or expend contracts? So the first action, I'm just going to go down the helper guide as listed, is to trade. That is buy or sell one type of good. You got to use 1 merchant per thing you want to trade. So if I wanted to say sell off my whiskey barrel as a starter just to get the money, I would place my merchant here on the sales side. I would get 11 because that's the going rates for whiskey right now. So I would sell the whiskey and take 11 more money. After doing so, I would move this down the number of units I sold. So 1 in this case. That means the next person who sells it is only going to get 10 gold. But now that makes it more lucrative for my opponent to go ahead and buy a whiskey because it only costs 10. So if on my opponent's turn, they wanted to go ahead and send both their merchants to buy whiskey, they would spend 20, and then it would go up 2. And that's where the market comes into play. So that's one of the actions, is buying and selling within the market. The second action you can do is to obtain an export contract. Here you have an export contract board. It is player account dependent. I think I set this up wrong, but maybe I didn't. I don't remember. I guess it's right. This is the 2-player side of the board, so it must be right. In the first round, you're actually going to get money for taking a contract. So I could take this contract here and 5 more money and place it in my contract board. Everybody's got 1 contract board to start with. Clan Buchanan gets a second one. So on a later turn, I could go ahead and pick up a second contract again. In the second round, it's even money. So taking a contract that's all you do. In the third, fourth, and fifth round, you're actually going to pay 5, 10, and 15 money to take that contract. So if this was the 4th round, I'd actually have to pay 10 money just to get that contract. So that's the second action, is you obtain a contract and put it on your export board. I'll go ahead and skip down. So it's the 7th action officially on the board, but then you can fulfill the contract by utilizing the values on the left-hand side of the contract. So in this case, I would have to sell 1 lamb chop, 1 steak, and 2 wool in order to fulfill this contract, which means I would have to have at least 1 cow and 1 sheep on the board. Then, in order to get that meat, I would actually have to kill them off, slaughter them, bringing them back to my board. But that would signify I met those 2 meat. I would turn in 2 of the wool that I happen to have, and then I would fulfill this by flipping it over. But first, I would gain whatever's listed on the right-hand side. In this case, there's some specialty resources that you don't necessarily gain, but you'll move up on the track here. So this one will give 2 wool, or 2 cotton, 3 cotton, because I can't do numbers either. So I'd move up the cotton tracker 3, and then the hops tracker 1. Hops are going to be worth points individually. Actually, there's no hops tracker. Hops are worth points. The specialty resources are cotton, tobacco, and sugarcane. And depending on how many of those you get and how well you drive the market, the one that is the most affluent in the market is going to be worth the least amount of points at the end of the game. And the one that's the rarest is going to be worth the most. So you want to collect what it's going to end up being the rarest. So I'm hoping in this case cotton is pretty rare, but I'm driving it up 3, so it might not be that rare. Right now it's actually the most prevalent. I'd also get an upgrade, and I'll cover that here in a minute. And hops are just special. They're worth just points at the end of the game based on how many hops you have total. And when you fulfill a contract, you just flip it over, and that frees up your export board to, again, take a new export contract. So that covers kind of the export board things. Take it or fill it as an action. And that's, again, you take 1 action, next player. Take 1 action, next player. Take 1 action, next player. The next thing, and one of the key things you're going to be doing on the game for the most part, is expanding. When you expand, you're going to choose an item on your board and place it out into the open, following the follow rules. First, you have to be able to afford the item itself. Each one costs a different value. Sheep cost 8, cows cost 9, cheese factories cost 8, bread factories cost 8, wheat factories cost 18, but they give you 2 wheat during the end phase. And they can be used to make bread and whiskey if you have the whiskey and bread factories out there. Again, cows give you milk, which can make cheese if you have the cheese factories out. And then you can put the whiskey factory out, or you can put more miners and lumberjacks. So you got to be able to afford what they cost to get off your board. Plus, you have to be able to afford where you're putting them on the land, and they have to meet the land requirement. Most things need a grassland, and most of the land is grass. But some of them are only forest, some of them are only water, which nothing can go into generally, but there are some clans that change those rules. And some of them are only mountains, which you can only place the miners into. So if you want to take the expand action, you're going to figure out what you want to put on board. Let's go ahead and say I wanted to start working towards the sheep and cows that I need to fulfill this, especially since the sheep also give the wool I need. I'll go ahead and put a sheep out. It's going to cost me 8 plus where I place it. And again, it has to be in a grassland and it has to be adjacent to one of the things I've already got on the board. So I'm going to go ahead and put this out, let's say right here, because I've got the water crossing. That's going to cost me 4 to place it, 8 for the sheep, so 12 money. And you can see how I could quickly become broke. And then in a later turn, I could, get another sheep out because I do want the 2 wool. I'll put another sheep out here. Cost me 3 plus 8 is 11. And let's say my opponent went ahead and built a wheat factory out there for 22. Now let's say I want to go ahead and build a cow, and I want to go right there. I spend the money. Now I'm adjacent to one of my opponent's factories. So at that time, I could purchase at a discount whatever his factory produces. It's called a neighborhood bonus, and it gives me a 2 or 3 money discount for purchasing. So the current rate of wheat is 5, but with a discount, I could actually purchase for 2 each. So that's a good deal. So maybe after I place the cow, that cost me however much it costs, 14 I think, I'd go ahead and buy a couple more wheat, whatever the case is, and have that out. And that's the expand action. That's the majority of what you're going to be doing in order to get things onto the board. Again, because you're trying to create those neighborhoods, you're trying to get them to interconnect, and more importantly, you're trying to generate the things for your economy later. The last few actions all intertwine with one another. Upgrade shipping, that is to pay for money to just increase your shipping up a level on the shipping tracker, allowing you to connect one further. So if my shipping level is upgraded to a 2, then I could go across 2 lake hexes and place something out into that space. And then for in-game, because they're within 2 of each other, they also count as connected villages. So I would have 1, 2, 3 connected villages right now. Upgraded technology. As it is right now, your lumberjacks and your miners are going to earn you income at the end of a round. The more you get out, the more income you're going to get. And when you upgrade them, it costs you 10, but you'll flip over your little upgrade thing, they'll get you more. So instead of getting 4 per lumberjack you have out, you're going to get 6 per lumberjack out. And instead of 6 for miner, you're going to get 8 money for miner. So that'll really help you get some money at the end of each round. But it costs you 10 to upgrade. Or like I said, with this, if I finished this contract, I would actually get 1 free upgrade. And that could be the ship. It could be my my miner or lumberjack, or the last thing, it could be hire a merchant. You pay 4 money and you get another merchant off the board, and you can buy up to 5 more as the game goes on, and that counts again as a free upgrade if you get the free upgrade reward from a contract. So that is the 7 main actions. You're just going to take turns doing them, mostly until everybody is out of money, because as long as you have money, you can keep going, and you don't ever want to end a round with a bunch of actions sitting on the board just because. But ideally, you've placed all your merchants out, you've spent all your money, you got as much off the board as you can, you've fulfilled as many contracts as you could, you've bought them now because they're cheaper earlier in the game than later. You try and do everything you can early. The one thing I kind of only hinted at is using the trade routes. If you're within water distance of a port, you can use the port. Each port gives you a different ability to use. For example, this port lets you gives you basically 1 of either type of meat. This one you could trade in 1 1 basic good for any 3 basic goods. This one's any 1 processed good for any 2 processed goods. So the last action you can do is pass. When you pass, whoever passes first will move down into the first pass tracker here. You can't really see it super well. And take that amount of money, and then they're out for the rest of the round. And once everybody passes, the round ends. At the end of the round, that's where you'll generate all the resources from your board. So now I've got 2 wool from my sheep being out. I've got a milk from my cow being out. I could make 1 bread from 1 wheat because I have a bakery. A bakery, yeah, it is a bakery. a bakery out, so I could turn this one wheat into the processed bread good. If I had more wheat out, I could have generated 2 more wheat, but I've only got 1 bread plant, so I could have only made 1 bread. Regardless, if I had a whiskey out, I could turn one of these wheats into a whiskey, etc., etc. And then I'd get the money from my miners and lumberjacks. It's all on the board. Just look at your board. You get the resources. If you've got processed goods, you can turn in the milk and make a cheese, assuming you've got that on the board, whatever the case is. And that'll generate you the new goodies you have for the next round, again, because you might need them to buy, sell in the market, or to get your export contract, because you're going to get points from export contracts filled. You're going to get points from having the goodies on it. The contracts are going to give you things as you complete them, and you're going to drive up the specialty market, like I said, the sugar cane, the tobacco, and the cotton. It's all going to generate from each other as each round goes on. Then you'll look to see who completed the round goals and earn points based on, in case of this goal here, you can't see it because my head's in the way, but in this one, every basic good that is milk, wheat, or cotton, not cotton, wool, milk, wheat, or wool would give you 1 point. So in this case, I've got 2 wool and 2 wheat in my example that I just threw out here real quick. So that would give me 4 points, and I would move my thing up the board accordingly. Then we would flip that over. We would reset the export board. We would set up everything. We get all our merchants back to use again. This would stay put as it is, and that's it. That's a round completed. You do that 5 times, and then you see who has the most points. Again, adding up the points from exported contracts. Whoever the most gets points. Whoever has, for each touching neighborhood, you get points. For the specialty goods and how many you've made from your export contracts, you get good. There's a lot of things to get points from, but generally it's going to be get things on the board to earn resources, to generate the market, to better set yourself up to complete the objectives you need to complete. And that's a basic, quick, dirty run through of Clans of Caledonia. I do want to point out that these were 3D printed for me. These did not come with the game standard. So if you see this doesn't come with the game. These little containers they were 3D printed, but they work real well. And that's it. I'm going to go ahead and get back for my final thoughts. All right, so there you had Clans of Caledonia, a quick overview, how it plays down and dirty. I tried to do it as quickly but efficiently as I was able. Hopefully it was at least semi-understandable and you got an idea of how the game plays, because there's a lot going on in this. So let's talk about the gameplay. Do I like the gameplay? I do. There's a lot of thinkiness, a lot of tight actions. Sometimes you might be one coin short of what you were thinking you were going to do, or 1 good short of making enough to complete a contract before the next round. Whatever the case is, you really have to be on your toes in planning out every action and every penny in the game, because it all matters, and you're fighting over the spaces on the board after a while, especially in a multiplayer game. The board spaces are going to become really tight, and you really got to consider whether or not you're going to remove that cow for the meat you need for your contract. But that opens up a spot. Maybe it's a real cheap spot for somebody else to jump on before your next turn. The market is always in flux. I really enjoy that. In an economy game, this is as solid as a market as I've seen, and you're going to have to work to get more merchants out, but the more you have out, the more you can buy and sell the things that you could use to help you complete the contracts and do everything you need to do in this game. It's a lot to manage. It's a real thinky game. And this is where I'm going to mention, because I forgot to mention it in my overview to start with, there is a reprint and expansion coming out November, so keep an eye out if you're interested in this game. And the expansion, I know the expansion comes with a great Atoma, because that's something I usually consider a lot for my gameplays. I play a lot solo. This has an okay solo mode as it is, but I'm really looking forward to it. And I've already play tested a little bit with the Atoma version that's coming out with the expansion. I'm looking forward to get my hands on it. because it adds that other player more than just the base solo mode does. The base one's okay, but you're just playing against yourself. Whereas the one that's coming out with the expansion the game doesn't come out in November, but check out Kickstarter in November. The Atoma mode, if you're a solo player like me, is solid and really feels like you're playing against somebody in that one. But back to this game. The base game is just a great, thinky economic puzzle that I really enjoy. So it's a lot going on, a lot to manage, and it's exactly the style of game I really enjoy. If you've seen my top 50, you know this game was on there. And it fits in such a small little box, a lot of game into a tiny, tiny box. You can see it takes up 3/4 of a calyx, and it's maybe 2 inches deep at most. Very, very jam-packed box. I don't think the expansion stuff's going to fit in here, but I think they're coming with a bigger box with that one too. But don't quote me on that. We'll wait and see together. The ingredients. What do I think of the ingredients? I love them. I love all these little meeples, the cow meeples, the cheese meeples, the sheep meeples, the bread meeples. They're great. Great wooden, everything you need. It stands out on the board. No problem telling things apart from each other. The cubes are good. Everything is nice wooden quality. I've already mentioned the box. It holds it all to the brim. Before I got these 3D inserts printout, I had everything just shoved in, jam-packed. I know others have said it's hard to fit the game back in the box as is. There's a lot jam-packed into it. The art, I believe Juma did all the art himself. It looks good. The icons are very easy to read. They look like what they're supposed to look like. They act like they're supposed to act. They're not even hard to figure out. The board itself looks like the Scottish Highlands. I guess I haven't been there, but you can see the greens and the hills and the forests in them, and that's all you need. You don't need anything super special. It does the job. The clans look okay. It's a cartoonish style to the clans, the Scottish cartoon. The rulebook comes in English and I believe German, at least my copy did. It's a solid rulebook. It explains everything pretty well. It's all good quality, good art, good ingredients. It packs a lot into the box the way it is. Big kudos to all the ingredients. And this one, when the expansion comes out, we need a bigger box. That's it. That's my ingredients comment for that. All right, Z. Is it easy to play? Yes, but no. It's a complex game. You're not going to introduce this one to somebody who's not already familiar with how worker placement works, how economy-driven games work, resource collection and distribution, and min-maxing every action to its fullest. This is not a beginner's game at all. This is definitely for a seasoned gamer who is pretty familiar with Euro styles. After that, it is easy. You're placing things from your board onto the main board, fighting over locations, paying the cost, and then collecting resources at the end of each round based on what you've uncovered. Collect points based on the goals, and fulfill orders based on your collecting and turning in things and driving the economy. A lot of thinkiness in the game, but I covered each action in maybe 5-10 minutes. I went over all 8 of the actions, so it's not a hard game if you know how to game, but I would not introduce this to new players unless you're really patient, and they're really patient. This is for more seasoned players. But after that, it's easy. More of it. Do I want more of it? Yes, I do. I like this game a lot. The board is variable. It's got 2 sides to each of these 4 hexes that go together. They create a different layout each time. You've got different port bonuses. You've got different round goals. You've got different export tiles. You could potentially have, markets moving differently depending on what other players are doing. There's plenty of variety in here, plenty of thought in here. I think there's 8 or 10 different clans to start with, and all that's just going to expand with the expansion and increase the replayability even more fold. But even if there wasn't that much variability, just the variable market and a little bit of setup still creates enough for me that I want to keep coming back and play it again and again. I really enjoy this. This is my favorite economic game. One of the only ones I can think of that really feels like an economy with the buy and sell action. So I really enjoy this one a lot. Originality. Is it original? It's got some originality to it, but some of this you've seen before. You've seen put things on the map, fight over land. It gets compared to a Terra Mystica for that aspect quite a bit, for trying to claim areas and get things from the board onto the main board quicker than other people and more efficiently. There are other games that buy, sell, trade to achieve goals. Other games with in-round goals, objectives, again, kind of Terra Mystica-esque. I know it gets compared to that frequently because the board and the round markers do feel pretty similar, but Terra Mystica doesn't have the economy that this one does, and not as much resource driven actions as this one does. So not super original, but it's got some touches and changes that make it feel okay, and that's good enough for me. I like this game, if you couldn't tell already. So let's go ahead and get my final thoughts. What do I think of this one? It's in my top 50, and once I get my hands on the Atoma solo mode, I'll be able to play it a lot more than I do now. It's a 4 out of 5 on my Gizmo scale. I think 8.4-ish out of 10 on the BGG. I just like what it brings to the table. I like getting it out and thinking through the actions and managing the economy in the limited resources at times, and trying to work things to the best that I can. I enjoy this one quite a bit, and so that's how I feel about Clans of Caledonia. And be on the lookout for the reprint. I believe it's kind of hard to get your hands on now, but come November, there's a reprint with a new expansion coming to Kickstarter, so keep an eye out if this one interests you in any way, shape, or form. If you like this video, go ahead and give me a thumbs up. Subscribe below if you haven't already. That way you can come back and catch the next video, whether it's another review or just some of my random thoughts about things in the board game industry and adjacent, or a top 10 list, a top 5 list. We're coming up towards the end of the year. Hopefully I've got my favorite new to me games for the year and my golden gizmos, where I point out some of the games from this year that I feel were award worthy in my eyes and give them some accreditation. Leave a comment below if you've played Clans of Caledonia, what you think, whether this game is or isn't for you and why, and what you thought about my thoughts on it. What did I miss or overlook or forget about or just kind of blew by and you didn't quite understand? I'll try to clear it up in the comments below. And I look forward to see you next time. Bye.